Welcome to Polaris Live. This is your host, Sarwar Kashmiri. Thank you for joining us for today's discussion in our series focused on the US-China relationship and its global implications as seen through the eyes of experts from around the world. This user-supported channel is brought to you live in collaboration with the Foreign Policy Association of New York. If you have questions for today's guest, please feel free to submit them using the bar on the right-hand side of the screen. After the live event, you can also listen to these programs on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again for being part of this conversation. My guest today is Ambassador Muhammad Shahrul Ikram Yaakob, Ambassador of Malaysia to the United States of America. Ambassador Muhammad Shahrul is a seasoned diplomat who has devoted more than 3 decades of advancing Malaysia's interests on the global stage. He's a graduate of the University of Malaya with a Bachelor of Science degree in ecology and an alumnus of the Harvard Business School. His ambassadorial assignments include postings as Ambassador of Malaysia to Qatar and later to Austria, where he concurrently served as Malaysia's permanent representative to the United Nations in Vienna. In 2017, Ambassador Shahrul was appointed as Malaysia's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, a prestigious role through which he championed Malaysia's voice on critical global issues. He was appointed Secretary General of the Malaya's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, currently serves as Ambassador of Malaysia to the United States of America. Welcome to Polaris Live, Mr. Ambassador. An honor to have you with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Professor Sarwar, for having me in your program. I look forward to the discussions today.
Well, listen, it's very nice of you to take the time. I want to ask you, first of all, the most important question. How does a change from balmy Malaysia to icy Washington, D.C. working out for you?
I mean, that question is very timely because today the temperature in the morning was like -8.
Oh, my gosh.
But I'm quite used to it because I had served in the US before. So it's just a kind of adjustment that has to be made.
Well, we're lucky to have you in the United States, Mr. Ambassador. Now, listen, while several Asian economies have collided head-on with the U.S. tariff regime, Malaysia quietly negotiated its way through, securing stable treatment, becoming a key destination for American supply chain. I mean, how did you guys do this? I mean, what was the strategy behind it?
Well, first, if I were to put in context, U.S. is important to Malaysia, not only from the perspective of trade and investment, but also from the perspective of political security and people-to-people contact. And we know that Malaysia is equally important to the US in terms of supply chain. If you talk about trade, for example, more than 700 American companies are having operation in Malaysia and they are making good money, and the profit is repatriated to the US. So having this in mind, we know that it is important for us and the US side to engage early in the negotiations to look at the tariff. And we also recognize that Malaysia, in terms of merchandise goods, we have been enjoying more or less 10 to 12 billion US dollars in our supplies. And our strategy is that to make sure that our products are not discriminated against when we sell on the export to the US. That's the overarching strategy. But of course, at the end of the day, it's our national interest because many SMEs in Malaysia are also depending on this within that supply chain.
Well, but the fact, we noticed that Malaysia was praised for its credible enforcement of rules of origin. There must have been a special regulatory agency that you set up that ensured Washington that Malaysia was not a channel for transshipment that harm U.S. national commercial interests. I know it's a little bit of detail, but can you just address that for a moment?
Sure. In terms of rules origin, for example, before May 2025, the certificates were issued by our business chambers. But on 6th of May, our Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, MITI, we have taken over issuance of the non-preferential certificate of origin. This is to ensure that they are all fully verified and audited before NPCO is issued.
Well, the fact of the matter also is that Malaysia manages the delicate balance of receiving Chinese investment while also meeting US expectations on technology and so on. So you actually are working in this very successful central position that a lot of countries are now trying to do. Mm-hmm. Right, and if I remember correctly, the American corporations can be not too far away from the Chinese corporations, and this is quite a remarkable achievement. I'm sorry I'm dwelling on this, but in this stage of trade affairs between East and West, this is really important.
Well, it is. And for us, in terms of our trade policies, even in terms of our international relations, we are taking the approach of non-discriminatory. And in that sense, for example, we don't discriminate, let's say, companies wanting to invest or wanting to have their operation in Malaysia, as well as Chinese companies, so long as they're based on rules. So this is the consistent policy that we've been taking, for many decades. And if you look at the competition between American companies and the Chinese companies in Malaysia, they are in different sectors. So we are taking a very, I would say, segmentized kind of pragmatism, if I were to put it that way.
Would you also say that Malaysia has been very successful in giving both China and America a feeling that they are both at the same level with Malaysia, that you're dealing with countries on an equal basis?
We do. Because both US and China are equally important to us. I mentioned earlier on that the US has been the largest source of foreign direct investment for us, for Malaysia.
Yes.
And China has been the largest trading partner for Malaysia in the past many years. The US is also top 10 in terms of largest trading partner for us, for Malaysia. But you look at the sectors they are in, they're quite different. The American companies are involved more in the high-tech industries or businesses, whereas China is more on like, trading as well as a big infrastructure project, if you will. So the different segment of businesses, of industries, if you will.
When you are speaking to other ambassadors, ambassadorial meetings, and so on, would it be proper to think of Malaysia as a non-aligned country, as a member of the Global South, as I'm just curious, how do you position Malaysia?
Well, we belong to all. I think we are non-aligned. We are a member of, the G77 in China.
Yes.
At the end of the day, so long as our approach is rules-based, we are quite comfortable because we're not siding with any party, for that matter. And the relationship so far has been beneficial to Malaysia and to all our partners, to all our friends, including the US and China.
I want to switch, if I may, to ASEAN. But let me remind our viewers that Polaris Live is entirely commercial free and viewer supported. And that we'd appreciate you signing up to our mailing list. We'd like for you to become a subscriber. You can do both by going to my website, which is kashmiri.com. You can become a subscriber there to both us on YouTube and also to the Stack, where we produce a one-page summary of the conversation that we are just having. And if I may briefly switch, Mr. Ambassador, to ASEAN, which Malaysia was such a brilliant chair of until just a few weeks ago. ASEAN is so important for Southeast Asia and as a regional multi-country grouping. May I just ask you to remind some of our viewers who may not be that familiar with it, why ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, why is it that important, and how does it function?
ASEAN is a unique association. With the recent admission of Timor-Leste in October into the family of ASEAN, we are now 11. Of course, there were 5 original members. The vision of our forefathers before, with that, we have to need cohesion among countries in the region, so that we are able not just to deal with matters important to each member, but also to deal with our partners. The unique thing about ASEAN is that the ASEAN will provide the guidelines, the framework, but at the same time, each member country has its own national interest to protect. This is sometimes quite quote-unquote confusing to some who are not quite familiar with ASEAN. Because when ASEAN has got the guidelines, they thought that each member will have, not to say interest, the interest is there, but they need to deal with each ASEAN member state individually on specific issues. So for us, ASEAN is important in providing the environment, the regional stability. Because we know very important that we are located in the waterways of, very critical waterways of Straits of Malacca, where more than 60% of valuable goods are shipped through that waterways.
It's what you say is very interesting about keeping sovereignty of the country, leaving the issues that belong to it out of the situation. How is the issue of war and peace handled?
Excuse me?
How is the issue of war and peace? Is that distinctly a country issue, or is it something that is openly discussed?
It's openly discussed, but not specific on war and peace, but more in terms of security. It's political security and economic security. We discuss every time we meet. And in fact, we have come out, for example, with the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Outlook. What it means is that ASEAN should be in the driver's seat in determining our future there. And it should be rules-based, no restriction on the freedom of movement, freedom of overflight, and so on and so forth. That is how we are trying to shape the security in Southeast Asia.
You know, under Malaysia's chairmanship, ASEAN stayed remarkably cohesive, dominated by US-China rivalry, and the whole year that Malaysia chaired. My friend Kishore Mahbubani, who wrote a book called Can Asians Think some months ago, or some years ago now, seems to have written a new article that says, "Can Asians make peace?" as I recall. And I want now to talk about this very delicate issue, if you don't mind, about this ongoing tussle in Burma, or Myanmar rather, and recently with two other ASEAN states. Is this very troubling, you think, to all the ASEAN members? And how do you think it's being handled?
Well, it has been a challenge, for ASEAN, because for us, stability of each member state is very important. Because when we deal with our partners or potential investors from outside, they will look at us as a region first rather than as individual state. Having said that, ASEAN has been trying very hard to influence the situation in Myanmar. And we came up with a 5-point consensus a couple of years ago, but obviously still is not working as it is intended to be. But still, ASEAN, by appointing a special envoy of ASEAN on Myanmar, we keep on talking not just with the military junta, but also with other stakeholders in Myanmar. And the other thing is that we have not allowed a representative of the political, government to attend ASEAN meeting. We limit it to just the, I would say, the professional, the people from the foreign ministry to attend all ASEAN meetings. So there is a ban kind of to the political leaders to participate in our meeting. Yeah, we do not think that we can resolve this like tomorrow. It will take time because the political dynamics in Myanmar is also quite complex, if I were to put it that way. But as you know, engagement is really the word for ASEAN. We are engaging. We are engaging them. We're trying very hard to do it, but the challenge remains.
Would you compare ASEAN in any way to the European Union? Do you treat the grouping as the European Union does, where they started out with a very commercial outlook, but then moved ahead to integrating the commercial cross-boundary sectors, and even started to think of a currency, local currency? Do you think Malaysia would like to see ASEAN head in that direction, or would it prefer to expand the countries in ASEAN and make it a much more regional actor?
We don't look at EU as a model in total, but only certain aspects. Because if you look at the EU, they are very, I would say, unified. They have, the Schengen Agreement movement, easier movement of their citizens, and then they have customs regulation and so on and so forth. We are trying to kind of only to adapt or to adopt only certain elements of that. Like, for example, ease of movement among citizens of ASEAN, and more, I would say, in terms of trade, the customs, procedures, some regulations on environment, for example. But it goes back to what I said earlier on, that ASEAN provides at the moment merely like a guidelines to member states to follow. But the beauty of ASEAN is this: we work on the basis of consensus. Although we agreed on, say, guidelines, for example, all ASEAN member states would normally adhere or would follow that guidelines because the decision made was based on consensus.
And so in Washington, what are the next 2 or 3 very important ideas that you would like to leave with with the administration and with the American people. How would you categorize what you would like to do, let's say, in the next year, year and a half?
I really love that question because I've always been asked what is my main mission here as Ambassador of Malaysia to the US. My main mission is to reaffirm or to renew a message that Malaysia is important to the US. Because when you say important to Malaysia, US is important as a superpower to almost every country. But I want to renew the message to my American friends here in DC that Malaysia is equally important to the Americans when you take into account the partnership in terms of security, partnerships in economic, partnership in trade, and equally important is the people-to-people contact between Americans and Malaysians. That is my main message, actually.
And so when you speak to people in Washington, chambers of commerce, and so on, that's what you're driving at, that it's people-to-people contact that is so important now.
Exactly.
It's just fascinating to think that you have become the ambassador at such a pivotal moment, if I may say, not just in American-Malaysian relations, but in just the commercial relations of almost the entire world, right? I mean, I will be speaking tomorrow to a renowned expert from Peru. And we were discussing yesterday, and she was just delighted to hear that you and I were going to be speaking today, and said, you know, there's a lot that we can learn from in Latin America from ASEAN. And ASEAN and Malaysia, I mean, they seem to be in the forefront of trying to make sense of what's taking place around the world. So how do you look at this? I mean, do you look at this as a much wider optic that you now have than just the US-Washington relationship, that you might be setting some rules and some inspirations that can guide us through this difficult time?
Well, I look at it this way, because sometimes just because of your geographic location, so you become important. Because you look at ASEAN, in terms of location alone, we are important actually to the US and to other partners as well. And then if you look at our population, it's about 640 or 700 million, and 60% are like young people. So when you look at the future, we look at ASEAN playing a very important role in the world global affairs. And another point is that if you look around the world, our region, Southeast Asian region, is one of the most stable region so far in the past few decades as compared to other regions. And in that sense, we are quite cohesive. So the message, if I may, is that there need to be that regional, stability in other parts of the world too, if we want to continue to engage with, other partners. Because at the end of the day, we want stability around us so that we can focus on our economic and social activities that would uplift the living standard of our people. I think that is crucial. That is important.
Well, it's just fast. Well, let me stop there, but go in a slightly different direction. What would you like to see America do more to help ASEAN in its strategies and in its work? What can America do to magnify its interest there?
Well, the framework is already there because US has a comprehensive strategic partnership, not with all, but with few members of ASEAN. And the US has been a major source of foreign direct investment for many ASEAN countries, as well as among the biggest trading partner. I think what the US can do is to give more publicity, if you will, one, and then secondly, to work together with ASEAN member states to come up with specific activities and programs. They're already there, but those will have to be enhanced and will have to be more publicized so that more people know about this cooperation and can become perhaps examples for other nations to emulate, to follow.
And then I must ask you that your President Anwar Ibrahim has always made it a big point to talk about Malaysia's enduring interests, historical enduring interest in the environment, in diversity, in balancing religions and people's interests and cultures. Is this a little more difficult, say, now when you are in a position of being the ambassador in Washington, D.C., when America is taking a much more national role, and shifting a little bit from complete alignment with what Malaysia is all about? I mean, that happens in countries, countries move in directions and so on. I'm just trying to figure out whether this is making life easy or difficult. And pardon me, I'm not a diplomat, so it's a different question.
Well, my Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, has always believed in inclusivity and sustainability. What it means is that as we develop domestically, no one should be left behind in that sense. And for us with the US, my personal perspective is that we look at it from like two angles. One angle is the political part of it, and then the second angle is really the substantive part of it. When I focus on the substantive part of it, I think it's very strong in terms of our bilateral relation with the US. So I do not want to say that my job here is easy. It's challenging, but I need to continue to remind our American friends that our bilateral relation is based on based on principles and based on serving the mutual interests of Malaysia and the US.
Well, that's quite a challenge. And I'm going to ask you, as we start running out of time, two questions. One is, what should other nations, especially in Latin America, learn from Malaysia and ASEAN's success in negotiating with the US administration's trade policy? And then I'm going to be very brave and ask you if you could give one piece of advice in private to Washington and Beijing about how to move forward in the world and take it with them, what would that be?
Well, that's a very, very tough question. I think on trade, first of all, we need to look inside first. What are our interests? What are our priorities? And then see whether those priorities are in line with the policies of the US in this case. And from there on, then you can come up with the right strategy, because different country has different interests, strictly in terms of trade. On the advice, I think it's very difficult to give advice. But from my own perspective, is that engagement is very important, because in any unpleasant situation between the US and China, for example, other countries will suffer, will experience the negative impact of any unpleasant relations between the US and China. The reason is very simple, because both US and China, they are global players, and they have relations, economic, trade, of course, political. There is already a political relationship, because in terms of trade and investment alone, both China and the US plays a major part in all countries in the world. So we would like to see the US and China engage more, and then to also perhaps think of the interests of other countries as well.
Absolutely. Well, we have unfortunately run out of time, Mr. Ambassador. And do you have anything final that you'd like to say in closing? It's a festive season for all of us. You have graced us with some light. Do you have anything you would like to say in farewell? Farewell for this instance. We will have you back, I hope.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And before I sign off, I wish to, I want to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, have a good time with your family, with your friends. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for your thought-provoking perspective. I do hope you'll come back and see us again, and let me reciprocate and wish you and your family a peaceful and enjoyable holiday season.
Thank you, inshallah.
Thank you to our viewers from around the world. Please join us again at polarislive.com as we continue to explore the most consequential relationship in the world, that between China and America, and its impact on all the countries of the world. Until we see you again on Polaris Live, goodbye.